Hi learners, welcome to Reading with Mrs. Evans again. So we're going to continue on with Roald Dahl's The Twits, and if you were with us last time, Mrs. Twit had been tied to some balloons in order to complete the great stretching. So here we go. Mrs. Twit goes ballooning up. There's enough pull here to take me to the moon, Mrs. Twit cried out. To take you to the moon, exclaimed Mr. Twit. What a ghastly thought. We wouldn't want anything like that to happen. Oh, dear me, no. We most certainly wouldn't, cried Mrs. Twit. Put some more string around my ankles quickly. I want to feel absolutely safe. Very well, my angel, said Mr. Twit. And with a ghoulish grin on his lips, he knelt down at her feet. He took a knife from his pocket and with one quick slash he cut through the strings, holding Mrs. Twit's ankles to the iron ring. She went up like a rocket. Help! She screamed, save me! But there was no saving her now. In a few seconds she was high up in the blue sky and climbing fast. Mr. Twit stood below looking up. What a pretty sight, he said to himself. How lovely all those balloons look in the sky. And what a marvellous bit of luck for me. At last the old hag is lost and gone forever. Oh, Mrs. Twit comes ballooning down. Mrs. Twit may have been ugly and she may have been beastly, but she was not stupid. High up there in the sky, she had a bright idea. If I can get rid of some of these balloons, she said to herself, I will stop going up and start to come down. And there she is, high up in the air. She began biting through the string that held the balloons to her wrists and arms and neck and hair. Each time she bit through a string and let the balloon float away, the upward pull got less and her rate of climb slowed down. When she had bitten through 20 strings, she'd stopped going up altogether. She stayed still in the air. She bit through one more string. Very, very slowly, she began to float downwards. It was a calm day. There was no wind at all. And because of this, Mrs. Twit had gone absolutely straight up. She had now began to come absolutely straight down. And as she floated gently down, Mrs. Twit's petticoat billowed out like a parachute, showing her long knickers. It was a grand sight on a glorious day, and thousands of birds came flying in from miles around to stare at this extraordinary old woman in the sky. Look at the next chapter, and it's titled, Mr. Twit Gets a Horrid Shock. I wonder what's going to happen now. Mr. Twit, who thought he had seen his ugly wife for the last time, was sitting in the garden celebrating with a mug of drink. Suddenly Mrs. Twit came floating down. When she was about the height of the house above Mr. Twit, she suddenly called out on top of her voice, Here I come, you grizzly old grunion, you rotten old turnip, you filthy old frumpet. Mr. Twit jumped as though he'd been stung by a giant wasp. He dropped his drink, he looked up, he gasped, he gurgled. A few choking sounds came out of his mouth. He said, I'll get you for this, shouted Mrs. Twit. She was floating down right on top of him. She was purple with rage and slashing the air with her long walking stick, which she had somehow managed to hang on to all the time. I'll swish you to a swazzle, she shouted. I'll swoosh you to a swizzle. I'll nash you to a nozzle. I'll nosh you to a nazzle. And before Mr. Twit had time to run away, this bundle of balloons and petticoats and fiery fury landed right on top of him, lashing out with the stick and cracking him all over his body. Oh dear. Wow, what an effort. The house, the tree, and the monkey cage. But that's enough for that. We can't go on forever watching these two disgusting people doing disgusting things to each other. We must get ahead with the story. Here is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Twit's house and garden. Some house, it looks like a prison and not a window anywhere. Who wants windows? Mr. Twit had said when they were building it. Who wants every Tom, Dick and Harry peeping in to see what you're doing? It didn't occur to Mr. Twit the windows weren't meant mainly for looking out of. Mainly for looking out of, not for looking into. And what do you think of that ghastly garden? Mrs. Twit was the gardener. She was very good at growing thistles and stinging nettles. I always grow plenty of spiky thistles and plenty of stinging nettles, she used to say. They keep out the nasty, nosy little children. Near the house, you can see Mr. Twit's work shed. To one side, there is the big dead tree. It never has any leaves on it because it's dead. And not far from the tree, you can see the monkey cage. There are 4 monkeys in it. They belong to Mr. Twit. You'll hear about them later. That's the end for today. Bye.
Stay tuned for more episodes.